Hey friends, this is Brett coming to you again with an episode of Seeking Our Spirit. Thanks for joining us. We're joined by my guest today, a good friend of mine, Scott Burgett, and a lifelong friend, and actually he dropped in last second to do this episode with us. So we had a great time chatting. We hope you enjoy. And as always, if you'd like to tell a story or be on the show as an interview, anything to do with quote-unquote spirituality, please reach out to me at seekingourspirit@gmail.com. Look forward to hearing you and enjoy. All right, so we're rolling. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, salute once again. a little restart. Yeah, like I already said a second ago, well, I'll thank you once again for doing this at the drop of a dime and filling in for me. I appreciate that. And yeah, so seeking our spirit, what spirituality means to us looks very different to different people. And so broad strokes of your life, what has your spiritual life looked like? What has spirituality meant to you? Where do you enter into that?
Well, as a kid, it started out in church, probably like most people. I grew up going to Catholic church, went to a Catholic school, so I went to church 3-4 times a week, until I was, 14, 15 years old, altar boy, all that stuff. Yeah. So pretty, we had religion class every single day, so most of it was just more of a structured.
That's right, because you went to Catholic school.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I went to Sacred Heart. So
yeah. What so like with that, would you say that was there an internal part of that for you as a kid, or was it just like the religion, like what you did?
No, it's just what you did. Okay. None of it. I mean, it didn't really, nothing really resonated, or it was just kind of like a going through the motions type thing.
Yeah,
and not necessarily in a bad way. I think it definitely helped start me off, just moral compass wise, on a really good path, and gave me kind of the groundwork and the knowledge about all spirituality, religion, God, and all that stuff to kind of find it on my own later in life.
Yeah. So, like, in terms of that, like, so like, I mean, I grew up in a liturgical church, so I understand that, like, you going through the prayers and all of these things, like, do you remember, like, what, was there a moment or a time in your life where that became more, I mean, obviously that's like developing a relationship with God, right? Like in those prayers. It's probably an unfair question. Like I'm sure there wasn't just like one day like the light switch.
No, there was definitely, God. I mean, I definitely had a time where I finally, you go through all those things, you go through, communion and learning all through the classes, and then you go through confirmation in high school and stuff, and I don't think it ever really took on any personal meaning more than just like trying to be a good person, because that's what I was told to do in school, and that's how my parents brought me up. It was never more than that, probably until I went on a trip with Young Life, actually, my junior year, and I guess it was the summer before I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. But I remember, going there and, starting to really kind of explore it on my own. And I remember one night we had a kind of like a town hall like type thing while we were out there in Frontier Ranch, Colorado, and they, talked about similar type thing, like, what does it mean to you? Like, we just want everyone to go off and go far away from everyone else. Just go find a place in the mountains, sit by yourself,
right, and
just think about it. And that's a pretty good place to think about it when you're just looking up at the stars on top of a mountain. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, so let's put a pin in that. Like, so, because that was high school.
Yeah.
So, is there anything, childhood, elementary, middle school, anything that you would sort of point to as like a quote-unquote spiritual experience of some type?
I don't really think so. I mean, it was more just like, you go to church every day, you do this, and I don't think there was really a spiritual moment where I felt like it was mine.
Right.
Like it was me choosing this or me experiencing this in my own way that actually meant something and stuck with me.
Right. Like some people talk about, like, I don't know, like you go into backpacking and they have, you know, or you just have some sort of, I don't know, experience. That's, okay, cool. Well, so that for you is sort of like the beginning. I mean, that had to be like,
yeah, I mean,
freshman, sophomore year.
Right. Yeah. I was like 17. Yeah, 17.
Yeah. So what was that experience like?
I mean,
what do you
just
recall from that?
I think just I had started to really get into it and actually, you know, we always had, like I said, religion class and read Bible verse and stuff, but I'd never sat there and just read the whole Bible. And I had started doing that kind of leading up to it. And then, you know, just had a moment up there where I was like, you know, this is, you know, I just had that feeling. There's no way to really describe it. You're just sitting up there and you just feel it.
You were struck by something.
And just feeling it for, you know, myself for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, kind of changed how I viewed life and changed who I wanted to be in life. You know, whether it was a structured thing or just an everyday part of my life and how I acted and how I tried to act and, you know, stay accountable for, you know, the way I treat other people and what I try and do.
Did you have any sort of like outside of like the religious institution prayer life? Like, did you have like, I don't know, you know, talk to God, you know, talk to...
No, I mean, I didn't really ever do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I started to, after that moment.
I was probably a very weird kid.
I don't know. I never did. Like, well, it's probably different just because I did so much of that during school.
Right. That
like,
affects a lot.
So I felt like, well, yeah, I got that box checked for the day.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So I didn't, and it wasn't till probably leading up to that experience, and then after that experience, I, you know, took the time to like really consciously, you know, I guess talk to God, quote unquote. Yeah. And
now, did you continue in with like Young Life stuff at that point?
Oh yeah, no, Young Life was one of the best possible things, and I've tried to get, you know, my son into it and other kids I know, but it's not the same experience for everyone, so it's kind of hard. It's not the same, you know.
That's really interesting. I don't know.
I loved it. I loved it so much.
I don't know that well, and just your personality too. You would love all the.
Oh yeah.
Anytime they embarrassed by all that goofy stuff and like felt uncomfortable.
Anytime they ask for a volunteer, I'm like,
yeah.
So
hence this podcast today.
Yeah. So that, and it was. I mean, that's what I feel like that's the kind of environment I needed to make it my own instead of it being. And I think the fact that it wasn't so structured, it was more like finding that spirituality through like singing a song with a group of people or playing some silly game that had some sort of purpose behind it.
Right.
And that was a whole entirely new way of like looking at spirituality and you know, finding a path to God. So,
meaningful connection with people.
Yeah. And I'd say my, you know, base as a childhood really helped, you know, solidify that. But that was the first time I really felt
your base, like, meaning the religious structure.
Yeah, the religious structure and all the, you know, classes I had and learning about it and knowing all the history, which a lot of people don't get that advantage of knowing all that going into.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, wow, see, that's so fascinating for me to hear, not to like insert myself into this, I'm interviewing you, but like, I don't know. I mean, obviously I've forgotten a lot since high school, but like, I don't know that I ever associated you with Young Life the way I did with some other folks in our similar circles. And yet I always had and maybe you didn't feel it. This is an interesting thing to talk about. Like, I grew up in some ways with like a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, in terms of growing up in the Episcopal Church. Yeah. And feeling like a real outsider and feeling like nobody understood me and didn't, and knowing that my perspective on religion and spirituality was very different from the stuff they were saying. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I always felt a sort of unspoken kinship. Like, I remember knowing you were Catholic and
felt like that was okay, cool.
Yeah,
You know,
we're like cousins. Yeah.
yeah, right, yeah. Mine doesn't count, but no.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I remember as a kid, which this is messed up, but I remember as a kid with my school uniform on, with my Sacred Heart shirt, standing in line at the grocery store, and getting, rude things said to me by old ladies and stuff, because I had on a shirt that said that I was Catholic.
Yeah,
and so it was a really wild, like, I at the time it didn't really register to me, but it slowly did, and it was just a weird thing. So yeah, the chip on the shoulder, absolutely. Like,
see, that's fascinating. But see, it seems like I probably took that out in a little bit of an unhealthy way. You were very accepting of Young Life and all that stuff, but I sort of took that chip out on them.
Well, what's funny is, so similar thing with my brother. My brother was very into youth group and stuff through Catholic and Catholic church and stuff, and he just didn't want anything to do with Young Life because of that.
Yeah,
and there was some people that maybe viewed me in a negative light because they knew I was Catholic, and I just didn't care. I never really much cared what anyone else thought. There was a lot of great people there, and I wanted to experience it, and have fun, and
I've come to learn, not to make this whole episode on Young Life, but I've come to learn later in life that the flavor of Young Life as we got it here is very different than it is in other parts of the country, actually. Because a priest colleague of mine told me how Young Life, where he grew up in New York State, was this awesome thing that the intention was to sort of grow leaders, young leaders, young Christian leaders in the schools, but they would encourage them to be leaders in their churches.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas here, it was sort of became more like a funnel into like certain churches.
Yes, here. More specific. Like, we'd rather you be in this church.
Yeah, and that's where I was like,
I never got any of that there. Yeah.
You were a lost cause.
There was a little bit. I probably just ignored it. But the only reason I even was able to go to Frontiers, I couldn't afford it. Yeah. And my leader, I guess he wouldn't care if I said Jason Henson. I still will always love that guy, and he was a big part of that path and point in my life. He kept asking me, hey, we do Bible study and things, and he kept saying, hey, you got to go on this trip. You got to go on this trip. Because I went on all the little ones, and I said, man, I can't do it. There's no way I can afford that. He said, you got to do it. You got to do it. And I said, I love you for pestering me about it, but there's no way. Yeah. And then I show up to, I come to a Young Life and, our normal Thursday, and we're at the end, and Steve Chesney comes up to me, which again, I'm sure he wouldn't care I use his name, but he comes up and he says,
for all you listeners out there.
He says, hey, I hear you're going to Frontier. That's great. We're so excited to have you. And I said, oh, Steve, you're wrong. I can't make it, man. That's too expensive. He said, no, you're coming. And,
awesome.
And they, got some people to donate money and to just cover it.
That's awesome.
And I'll never forget.
Oh, yeah. That means a lot.
Most fun trip of my entire life.
Well, and it ended up being this, sort of breakthrough kind of spiritual experience for you.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I never made it out there. I went to like Sharp Top Ridge once or something. Yeah. But yeah, that's fascinating. The other thing to me that's interesting, and this is sort of a theme that has been coming out, not just in these episodes, but in just when I talk with people about this and walk with people in their journeys, is I start to see like folks, whatever it is, God, source, spirit, I don't care how people define this, whatever this is that we're talking about, it seems that folks, it's like different languages that folks have. So like some people have these experiences that are very like visual, dreams, visions. Some people, they experience this through like the gut. Some people experience it through nature. But one of them, and what I hear you sort of saying, maybe, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but and this is one that gets articulated by people quite a lot, is that their sense of spirituality happens actually through people.
Yeah.
And through like meaningful relationship and through community. So there was a taste of that there. You had sort of mentioned. So I don't know. Don't want to put words in your mouth. And I'm also not saying that people don't experience various of those options.
Yeah.
But I tend to see in people like one becomes stronger over the others. But yeah, I don't know if that. Like, am I putting words? in your mouth?
No. That's 100%. I mean, that's probably why Young Life appealed to me so much.
Right.
Is because the more I can share something with people, the more it means to me, and the more I get out of it. So, I mean, and that's every aspect of my life. I mean, I've always, I've got plenty of things that probably I should work on in my life, but one of them I've always tried to do is just be there, and just be there. And I feel like that's probably my biggest like connection with spirituality is just trying to be there for people.
Yeah.
And because there's been times in my life where, that meant more than anything to me.
Oh, sure.
And so I really, I made wholesale changes in my life a couple times just to get that across. So,
well, it's a great point in that, we call it, I mean, it's something we talk a lot about in clergy talk, which again, I'm talking more than I normally do here, but like just the ministry of presence.
Yeah.
So showing up for people, because there's a big burden, I think, for a lot of young clergy or clergy when they're new, of like someone dies or someone's in tragedy or someone's in these like critical situations, and people feel like they've got to fix something or do something or say something. But the truth is,
no,
you can't.
Yeah.
None of that would do anything. And just the being there is what counts. And what
just
is most
show
important.
up.
Yeah. So that's good. Okay, so you go out there to Colorado. You have this mountaintop sort of experience, and then what?
Well, you come home and have continue on with Young Life and doing all that, and from there, unfortunately, had a friend, probably the best friend I've ever had, die.
Yeah.
Day after high school.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about with just showing up. I mean, that's part of where all that came from, is I had a lot of people trying to fix the problem and wanted to tell me all these things, and I didn't want to hear them. It just it really just annoyed me.
Yeah,
more than anything. But the people that just showed up, and you didn't have to sit there and tell me it was going to be okay, or just showed up and were willing to be like a friend, and so from there it was rough for several years. I'd probably say there was practically no spirituality in my life for a while after that. I just was, which a lot of people do, is you either lean into it or you get angry, and I got angry.
Sure. Well, and I also think that's, I mean,
yeah,
obviously I'm biased because of what I do, and I have a certain perspective, but I think it's impossible to have an absence of. Yeah. It's just we rebel, we reject, we get angry, we rebel, whatever, but that thing is never leaves us. But it's and I don't know if you want to dig into that anymore, if there's anything else you want to say about that. But obviously that came out when Michael was on. Yeah. It would be interesting as you were sitting there mentioning Adam and that loss and that tragedy. I'm sitting here thinking like, wow, it would sort of be curious to talk to like as many people that were in those circles with us about how that moment in their life and that event and that loss affected them. Yeah. I said this to Michael. It's I forgive our many listeners out there for repeating. But it's always been very interesting to me. I won't tell the whole story, but it's been fascinating to me because I didn't know Adam, like hardly. Yeah. I wouldn't have. I mean, I wasn't bad with anybody, so I didn't have any ill will or anything like that. We just didn't really like hang out sometimes we would coincide in circles, and
cross
parties, or
paths,
whatever, and fine. But even that being said, the loss of Adam and how that happened and the time of our life and all that stuff drastically impacted me to where, I mean, it sent me on a different trajectory. And some of that had to do with God does not talk to me in visions and dreams, but then that moment I had this like crazy dream vision, I would call, that really, really sort of changed my life. It was with him. Huh. I'll have to tell you that because off the air sometimes, because I told it in Michael's episode, but so that's just fascinating to me. Yeah. And it was so much so that like even in my dorm room at App State, that entire time, and I may have kept this up even at UT, I had next to my bed like the newspaper, like the picture of the car and the picture of him, like it was like, I think it was his senior picture or whatever, and like the article there. But just strange because I didn't have anywhere close to that. Yeah. So anyway, point being, it'd be interesting to see how different people were impacted in different ways. I mean, Michael, I'm sure talked a lot about it, but I mean, he and I.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. He and I, I think had similar experiences after it. Just probably leaning into the wrong thing and didn't make anything better.
Oh yeah, sure. Definitely. Michael talked about that. Yeah.
But I mean, one thing it did do is, there's a lot of people in my life, and I was never really, we never were super touchy-feely like, men especially, to each other. Sure. Explain, telling each other how you felt about them, telling them you loved them and stuff like that. And, from the day that happened, I wouldn't leave.
Oh, you mean like in your family?
Yeah,
as well?
In my family, close friends,
sure.
Just wouldn't leave without saying it. And it took years for some of them. Then finally, occasionally, they'd be like, "Oh, I love you too." Yeah. Scott, just stop, all right? Yeah. So
I like you a lot.
Leave it there. Yeah. But from there, it just there's probably a good stretch of time where I wouldn't say there was much spirituality. Probably all the way until my son was born. Yeah. And named him Adam, of course. And
how many years would that be?
Not that
2000 to
2006. So
okay.
Yeah, only 6 years.
Yeah.
But that stretch, I mean, there was probably not a lot of spirituality going on.
Just sort of, you think, rebellion, like anger?
I got so used to not doing it. Yeah. I think it just became habit to not worry about it. And
did the religious, like organized religion side of it fall away as well?
Oh, I didn't go at all. Yeah. I don't think
that fall away in high school?
No, I still went in high school.
Yeah. But definitely college.
But once that happened, I don't think I probably went to church for...
Was there any
6 8 years?
You don't have to answer any of this, but did the church respond to you in those moments?
Well, I mean, I have a close family friend of ours is a Catholic priest that he was sent right out of seminary to our local church in a Keebler Elf factory at the time. That's where we had church at because All Saints is where it was brand new. And so I was an altar boy for him right when he first, became a priest. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he definitely, was there for me. Yeah. And not just as a priest, I mean, as a friend.
Right. There in the way you were speaking of.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't trying to fix anything or tell me how, it wasn't God's fault or anything. Right. He just was there as a friend. And yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, as far as, I don't know if that's the church reaching out really, but he was always there and is still there, to this day.
For sure, yeah.
So,
yeah, good, yeah. Okay, so you got that time of sort of wandering in the wilderness, I guess. We've been reconnecting around some of that. I mean, we had a lot of fun wandering in the wilderness for a couple of years. Because that, I mean, all the stuff we were talking about the other day, that's that time period.
Yeah, for sure.
But okay. So yeah. So for you, what's your sort of next? Is it Adam being born? I mean, is it?
I think that kind of brought more of it to the forefront of, hey, I need to reconnect with this side. I need to make sure my son, has at least the tools to decide on his own. I want some sort of acknowledgement that, and I don't know if I always did the best job of it, but at least we tried to, have him, understand some of that stuff. He went to a, private like Christian school for like preschool and stuff like that for a few years, and then we bounce around to churches and things like that. I think both him with his mom and with me, and I don't think it probably really reconnected much at all church wise until maybe 8-9 years ago. And again, it was just due to people, like a family that I randomly grew close with. I sold them a membership to a gym. While I was trying to work multiple jobs and go back to school to, get more of a people-oriented job. And ended up, of all things, at a Baptist church for, a couple years, and really reconnected. Helped me reconnect with the spirituality portion, because it was kind of like Young Life. It was where we were just singing songs and like. I loved these people. They loved me. They loved my son. We went out to breakfast every Sunday afterwards, and as they kind of all, their older kids graduated and moved on, that community wasn't there anymore, and it more just became like it was before, where it was me trying to find it on my own. And I think I started doing that more through my job after that. I was an insurance agent for years, and it's a necessary thing, but it was soul sucking. I just sitting at a desk one day just thinking, I can't do this. Like I don't ever go to bed feeling like I've accomplished anything or helped this world in any way, shape, or form. So I went back to school to work in medical field. Originally, just getting as an X-ray tech was the plan, but kind of found my niche inside of that in a little bit more specialized area, and from there just started finding meaning again through helping people, and I think that's where most of my spirituality came from. Comes from now.
Right. Well, it's interesting for me to connect those two things in you, because I've heard you speak before about like just professionally, like wanting to do something that was meaningful, and you talk about how it's important for you to be there for the patients in a different way, and to show up for them. And so, that's interesting to hear the back sort of story of how that has been sort of where you have encountered spirit or connection in life. Meaningful connection in life has been through those relationships and people showing up for you, and then how that now influences your path and your profession, your career. So that's cool.
It's basically I get to show up for people who are having a one of the worst times in their life, and I get to kind of at least try to do for them what I appreciated people doing for me when I was having a tough time, and I, trying to just be a family member, not just someone trying to get them in and out, and trying to stay in touch with them. I mean, a lot of them have my phone number and will like call me if things are tough, not necessarily having to do with medicine, things that are going on with them, just showing up and going to breakfast with them or something, and showing them that someone cares.
Trying to think. So like, I mean, in that period there of Adam being born and everything, I mean, I don't know, those are so hard things to put in words, but I think it's just like sort of assumed. I mean, to become a parent, it's just so deeply
it changes
horrifying and spiritual.
It changes what's important.
It's like, whoa. Well, and that's and that's an interesting sort of touch point too with you, is like, again, with the loss of Adam, your friend, it changed what's important
Yeah.
And then with the birth of Adam, your son, it changes what's important, right?
Yeah. I think fear is the best, the best word. I mean, joy, ultimate joy, and then just fear, like being. Yeah, you want to try and set a good example, and I mean, I try to, but just having someone that's now you're responsible for trying to set them on the path that you hoped you were on, and hopefully making them better at it than you ever were. And I don't know. I mean, he's by far better than me. He's a sweet kid and loves everyone and treats everyone, well, and I don't know what to. That's probably my proudest thing is just seeing how what a good dude he is, and you can get. I guess you can get spirituality from that too. I mean,
sure.
Take pride in hopefully having someone else out there trying to help people and do the right thing. And,
well, that all connects to your whole theme.
Yeah.
I mean that makes just total sense that would be your focus with him and like top priority with him, right? So that he would be a person who will show up.
Yeah,
right?
just show up. Yeah.
Yeah,
show up and don't be the guy. I mean, it's so hard in high school too, and that was one of the big things with Adam, and I think that's how we became such good friends. Is he was just like me, and we didn't have a specific group. Like we just bounced around to everyone because we just loved everyone. Like, and that's like you said, that's kind of carried throughout my life, and one of the big things with his death is making sure, like, he would be looking down and be like,
sure,
yeah,
proud of what you're doing.
Yeah,
sure, yeah. Yeah, no, that all totally wraps into the same theme and makes sense. I had a question there too. What was that? Adam. Oh well, I mean, so obviously, like, and again, you don't have to get into details or whatever, but obviously, like, I'm assuming, divorce from Adam's mom, and that stuff was a dark time, probably,
for sure,
spiritually.
Yeah.
And then recovering from that.
Yeah, I mean,
how long has that been now?
14 years or something. It's been a long time. Yeah, just young.
Yeah, sure.
But staying friends. Like we're friends, and get along really well, and that's been important to both of us. And definitely both done a good job of giving that example to Adam and showing that hey, even if something goes wrong with someone, you can still love them and care about them and do what's best for other people. So I think that's been a big thing too, and that's definitely helped him. A lot of divorced kids probably have trouble with I don't even know if he would say he has spirituality or if he'd know what that means, but I think
well, that's the point of the show. Like,
but I think
anybody does.
Yeah, but I think his him seeing us work hard at not being like everyone else. We get a lot of I would say his mom would say this too. A lot of people look at us and they're like that's weird that you like hang out together. Like,
oh, I don't think that's weird.
Like
that's
if you,
that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, we invite each other to like, family get-togethers, and if it's Christmas and he's supposed to be with one, the other one gets invited over, and I think that's like, I mean, it kind of does go back to the spirituality thing is, just being there for people, and things might go wrong, but doesn't mean you can't.
Yeah,
know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, it's a great theme. I mean, like showing up in the messiness. Being there for
the
folks,
hardest time,
no matter what. No, I don't think that's weird. I used to always love like seeing out in the pews. Like there were families that would divorce and then be blended. They would have their own spouses and their kid, and they would all sit, in the same pew. And I was like, I mean, if it's got to be done, that's the way to do it. So,
well, it's a lot harder to hate than it is and hold on to something than it is to just do what I learned first through 8th grade, what you were just beaten into you, is that love your neighbor, do the right thing, turn the other cheek type deal. And most of the time, if you give people a chance, they're gonna be, I feel like they're gonna be, earn your forgiveness, or you can earn their forgiveness if you just show up. Like, just show up and just keep doing the right thing, and eventually, love wins out.
That's a beautiful. Yes, I agree. I believe, and that's a beautiful perspective, and that's I think that shows a lot of. I think that's a beautiful thing about you, that you hold that perspective. It's fascinating what you just said. Like, I actually think most people would not say what you just said. That it's easier. It's harder to hold on to something and hate someone than to.
Way harder.
Most people would not at all say that.
Yeah. I have to like force myself to really maintain a grudge against someone. Yeah. I mean,
that's really great, man.
Yeah. And I'm terrible at it. It
I would say a large percentage of people in this world deal with and work through problems their whole life related to the fact that they can't let go of the hate, they can't forgive and can't move on and can't reconcile.
Well, I just figure I've done plenty that people could be mad at me about, and I just hope that they, forgive and let me get back. I mean, because I don't know, without being around people, I mean, you cut off all those relationships. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's probably impossible to have any spirituality when you're sitting on the couch by yourself. So. Mm-hmm. All the time. Everyone loves a good hermit session. Yeah. That's been the best part about us reconnecting, I think, is, and I've told not to, blow smoke, but I mean, I've told lots of people how much it's meant to me, like reconnecting with, someone I've been friends with for the majority of my life at this point. Is Fridays, we're kind of like, I had the day off, which is great, but I usually ended up at the end of the day feeling worse than if I'd have just gone to work, because I sat around and didn't do anything. Couldn't find anyone to have that, companionship and things like that. And a lot of our conversations have been, good too, for kind of.
Yeah, definitely. Thankful for that. Funny too. It's just sort of like, oh, there's Scott.
Yeah, yeah, and the way we reconnected was, I got a text message with a picture of the back of me, which my first thought was like, damn, I look fat from the back.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, definitely thankful for that as well. Been fun and nice. This is totally random, but I was thinking about this the other day. Speaking of going back, I'm almost 100% positive you went to the airport when Carla first came. When Carla came
for
back.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was talking about that.
Honestly,
with Carla
forgot
the other
about
day.
that. But
yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, it's funny how but that's, I mean, those are the people that are always going to be part of your life, that kind of bounce in and bounce out. And we've all got stuff going on, and like we were talking about earlier, some people will hold a grudge on that, but everyone's got their lives going on. Mm-hmm. Like, it's hard to, with kids and stuff, and I've got maybe the oldest kid of all of our group of friends, and that's so I disappeared for a while, just trying to
do life.
Just trying to stay afloat.
Yeah, sure.
And keep everything going. Yeah. So I appreciate friends picking up right where we left off.
Yeah, and I've had that too, definitely. Yeah, with some.
Yeah.
So what? Okay. Anything. So you sort of brought us up to to now. I mean, really. I mean, we mentioned like Adam raising kids.
Yeah.
Whatever, divorce. The time after that. I mean, anything in particular in the world of your relationship with God, Spirit, whatever that stands out in that time period up to now.
I mean, it just mostly comes back to, career choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
you find the meaning.
That's where I find the meaning, and that's really the majority of my church. And I'm again with the same, storyline as I don't really have any interest in going in church and sitting in a pew by myself.
Yeah.
It makes me feel more alone than part of a group.
Sure.
So, no, I mean, I fight with myself still because it's not easy. Anyone you talk to anyone who works in a hospital,
yeah.
they have constant battles with themselves about whether it's worth staying.
Sure.
In that kind of work, and I think the most spiritual thing I get is out of helping those people. And I might have a terrible day, and then you get the one person that tells you how much they appreciated it, and no one's ever treated me like that before. Usually people just want to get me in and out, and you made me feel like a family member, and that's where I get all my spirituality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
action service.
It's just trying to, and that's the only reason I stay in that environment now, is because that's what I want to do. Is I want to have that feeling. It's a little selfish too. I mean, I want to feel like I did something, and when I die, hopefully there's more to it, and I can show up and say I tried to do what what God would want you to do. They would want you to help people, and that's the card I'm going to play. And and I hope it's the right trump card.
Sticking with it, right.
Because there's probably plenty of other things that'd be like, well,
right.
And there's probably plenty of people that could say, well, what about this, Scott? And I'd be like, but
That's funny. Well, good. Yeah. I mean, it's just a very clear theme throughout your life.
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting to hear. It's just like
I have a disease of volunteering and trying to help. I say it like that
could be
because
worse things.
It's just I a lot of times probably put aside maybe what's best for me and lean into trying to do something for someone else, and it is a little bit selfish, I'm not gonna lie, because it makes me feel good.
Well, that's what I was thinking the first time you said that. Is that's such a common theme in and a lot of what I do. It's like take mission work. Yeah. Like the most common reaction that people have when we take them to Bolivia, and I hear people say this all the time from any mission work, is like they thought they were going to be the ones who going down to help. Yeah. But they feel guilty because they felt like they got so much more out of it. And I think that's just part of that's why giving and serving and loving, right, is so good, because it not to be so cheesy, but it heals all. I mean, it's when you choose to love instead of hate, when you choose to serve instead of not, you do get something out of it. And it's sort of like a natural spiritual incentive.
Yeah.
In a way, it's like knowing that's sort of how we know we're on the right path, I think. Right? Because you get something out of it. It feels good to do because it's the right thing. It doesn't feel good if it's the wrong thing, And
I've told people, there's plenty of people that have heard me say this, and like when I was going to the Baptist church all the time, I mean, I had people that knew me from childhood, and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like those. I mean, just honestly, a lot of those people were the ones as a kid, not those specific people, but that, that would kind of talk down to you. And I always just said, I mean, same with helping someone. I've never once walked into church and walked out feeling worse. I've never once gone to help a friend and left feeling worse. So, I mean, I think that's where, obviously that's where I find my spirituality is I feel... That's the time I feel like a presence, and I feel that moment from the mountaintop in Colorado is after I've helped someone or after I've done something that made someone's day better or might mean something to them that they needed, and no one even knew. So
yeah, that's awesome. So okay, do you have any And unless you have more, that feels sort of like you
that's
walked through like a timeline. What do you have? Things that you haven't mentioned already? That's like, if I said what's the most quote unquote spiritual experience you've ever had, whatever that means to you, positive, negative, I don't know. Do you have like a other than like the mountaintop? I mean,
I think that's the one. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the one. I've never felt that way ever again to this day, and that was, nothing else involved except me by myself, and prayer, and no alcohol, nothing involved. It was just a clean, clear, this feeling of kind of like something washing over you, and just making you feel like, okay, I legitimately believe this. I feel like there is, a purpose for my life, and it's hard to stay on the path that you felt, but
sure.
But that would be the one. I've never.
Yeah.
Which I guess at 17 you'd think maybe there's going to be another one.
Well,
but I hope there is. It was a great feeling. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? There's these. I mean, setting does a lot for people. Like I find nature does a lot for people if they have that moment. I think also, like, we're so bombarded and distracted and busy, and so I think. I mean, part of what's powerful about, like, in that instance, the Young Life folks telling you, like, just go, be alone, talk to God. It's so strange because that's the easiest thing for any of us to do.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much the last thing that any of us do.
Yeah.
Like, we can do that anytime, any day.
I could go on a hike and do it right now.
Or you can just sit on your back. I mean, like, but, like, instead of doing that, we distract ourselves. Yeah. And so part of the question becomes, how often are we creating those situations in our life to sit and talk to God or sit and be with God,
I feel like if they don't, I mean, yeah, for me, I just, if they don't come about, someone technically told me to, but I feel like it was more just the right place, right time.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, the closest.
You felt it was like what we'd call like an inbreaking of the spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the closest I've ever felt to that was, oddly enough, a backpacking trip, which you said earlier, everyone says it, but not the fun one you were there. It's just you weren't there on the way back. And I don't know if you remember the time we went up and hiked 7-8 miles into the middle of the Smokies, and then halfway up it starts pouring rain, and then it starts snowing.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a rain fly, and I just sat there all night thinking I was going to die of cold.
Yeah.
And didn't sleep a wink, and as soon as the sun come up, said, "All right, guys, see you at the car."
Such vague memories of that.
And just, I literally jogged all 7 miles back to the car. And during that time, remember talking to God and saying, just get me back. Get me back.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the closest to that mountaintop experience, is just looking around and seeing just everything around me, and kind of having just the mildest amount of that feeling that, hey, someone was behind me, pushing me along. Yeah. And
I remember that, dude. I feel like there was periods where we, like, I want to say, like, it was raining so hard we sat like.
Well, you all were dry. I was soaking wet.
Because you didn't have a fly?
I didn't have a rain fly. Everyone else did.
Why didn't you just come in, like, my tent?
Oh, no. On the way up. So my whole pack got soaked. So I had my sleeping bag on the outside, an outside pack. And so my sleeping bag was soaked. All my clothes were soaked. Everything was soaked. And, I remember just sitting. I finally got back to the car and just thinking, thank you, God, for getting me back here. And I sat in the car with the heat on full blast for like 2 hours until you got back. That's probably the closest.
This has nothing to do with spirituality other than, well, maybe because it's talking about spirits.
Yeah.
But this is so random. One of the only things I remember from that trip, I don't know if you'll remember this at all, but I was afraid. I often get afraid in the mountains at night, but I was scared at night because we had just been talking, or I had been talking about these old Native American legends.
We intentionally there was a Native American burial ground right next to us.
That's what it was. We went there.
We intentionally went for that.
What a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking about these stories of these like the fair folk, like the lights that call you into the woods, and you're not supposed to follow them. We did. We went up there for that.
The whole reason we went there.
That's why I was scared out of my mind all night.
We got up there and we went and saw the burial mounds and everything, and then
that's right.
Yeah.
And I was horrified all night that lights were gonna come knocking on my tent.
You were probably horrified by the sound of my chattering teeth. Like, as I slowly slipped into to the netherworld of hypothermia.
Oh man, that's good stuff. All right, well, it feels like you got anything else?
I got nothing
feels like
else.
You're there.
I rambled and skipped time periods back and forth over and over. So
no, this is great, man. Especially again, thank you for at the last second coming in and talking to me. I was going to ask you anyway, but you know,
it might not have been good, but it filled the air.
No, it's great. It's great. I appreciate you doing it, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
anything.
Thanks,
for
brother.
Anyone ever.
Yeah. Thanks, brother. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. Love you, man. Appreciate
you
doing it.
Yeah.
And
thanks for asking.
Maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, dude.
All right.
Peace.
See you, man.